Okay, folks, we're going to start the meeting now. So again, I'd like to welcome you all here tonight for our meeting on inclusionary zoning for affordable housing study and citywide major transit station areas study. My name is Erin Senior, and I will be your moderator tonight. Before we begin, I'd like to start with a land acknowledgement. I would like to acknowledge the lands which constitute the present-day city of Mississauga as being part of the treaty and traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the Huron-Wendat and Wyandot nations. We recognize these peoples and their ancestors as people who inhabited these lands since time immemorial. The city of Mississauga is home to many global Indigenous peoples. And as a municipality, the City of Mississauga is actively working towards reconciling and confronting our past and our present, providing space for Indigenous peoples within their territory to recognize and uphold their treaty rights and to support Indigenous peoples. We formally recognize the Anishinaabe origins of our name and continue to make Mississauga a safe space for all Indigenous peoples. Next slide. So folks, why are we here tonight? Well, we're here tonight to learn about major transit station areas and inclusionary zoning. There's a lot of technical information we're going to be sharing with you tonight. And there's a lot of technical information when it comes to covering these two topics. So we wanted to make sure that we provide an opportunity to provide you an overview of major transit station areas and how they connect to the inclusionary zoning policies. And we also wanted to share with you what inclusionary zoning is, who it's targeted towards, and review some of the draft policies. So our presentation tonight is going to take between 30 and 40 minutes. And we know that that can be a long time to listen to a lot of technical information. And so we are going to have a break after we've heard about MTSAs, just for clarification, because we really want to make sure that you do understand what we're presenting tonight and have a solid foundation in it. Following the MTSA presentation and our 5-minute clarification break, we'll go into the inclusionary zoning presentation. And then after that, and that presentation will take about 20 minutes. After that, we'll have another 15 to 20 minutes for clarification, reflection, and questions. We've got a lot of folks who are joining us tonight. So I want to make sure that while we're having this opportunity to chat, that everyone does get a chance to say something. So we've got about 72 people. I think this is going to go up probably to around 80 people tonight. So when you are asking your questions, try and limit them to one at this point in time so we can get around and make sure that everyone has a chance to speak. We're also going to make sure that if you're joining us by phone and you need to have something to say, you can just press *3 in the chat and that will notify the host. You can raise to unmute you and then you can ask your questions. And also so you're aware, we will have note takers tonight. They're going to try to capture all of our conversation so that when we go back to revise the policies, we've got your comments and questions to think on. So also please know we are recording the presentation today and we will repost this on the project website at a later date. Can I have the next slide, please? So this is really our WebEx orientation. This is your first time joining us on WebEx. I'm sure many people have been on this platform before. If you have a question, comment, you can type that on the chat, which is to your right-hand side, and the chat goes to everyone. We do have staff on board who will be responding to certain questions as we go along. If you're on your computer or mobile phone, please press the hand button that's at the bottom left-hand side of your screen. And then that will notify the host that you want to speak. We will unmute you and then you can speak. We're really hoping that we get people asking questions tonight because although we're in a webinar, it's nice to actually hear other people's voices. And again, if you don't have a computer and you're joining us by phone, please press *3 to raise your hand and then press *6 to unmute on your phone. So, again, we will share a link to the project websites at the end of the meeting. And if you are unable to get your question out and you're joining us over the phone, I will provide the project lead's contact information and you can call them if you'd like at a later date and ask them the question. Can I have the next slide, please? So for this type of event tonight, we do see that the preferred layout is stacked view. If you're on your desktop computer or cell phone, just if you're on your cell phone, just tap the three-dot icon for the layout and select the stacked view. Could I go to the next slide, please? Now, many of you have experienced this before, but we're in a virtual world of virtual engagements. And so we want to make sure that we do have technical support for you. So for staff, if there's any technical issues, please just message in the chat and we'll have someone get to you. And for attendees who are joining us tonight, we also have someone for you. If you do have any technical issues, please just call Amy Campbell at 905-615-3200, extension 5368. And we just posted that in the chat. So again, any technical issues, you can put that in the chat or you can call Amy directly and she will help you to the best of her abilities. All right, so let's go on to the next slide. So before we begin, we really like to get a sense of who is in the room. We know we've got over 76 participants tonight. And so we'll try and launch a poll, but if we can't launch the poll, what I'd like you to do right now is have a look at the slide in front of you. Are you a homeowner in Mississauga, a renter in Mississauga, a landowner, a developer? Or are you a housing advocate, a government representative, or other? If you could you please type in the chat the best of the list, one of the best words that describes you, and then we can get a sense of actually who's going to be here and who's joining us tonight. So I'll give you guys a couple minutes for that. Again, if you're a homeowner, great. So we've got someone that's just said they're a homeowner, government representative. So a university student, homeowner. Wonderful. Thank you again for joining us. Young professional. We've got a renter. Perfect. A homeowner again, developer. Great. Thank you for being here. Thank you for letting us know where you're at. So we'll keep that going for a couple more minutes. Okay, wonderful. Okay, housing advocate, all right. Social service professional. So we have a wide variety of folks joining us in the room tonight, which I really hope will enrich our conversation and our questions and answers as we continue through this engagement. City of Brampton, thank you very much. Okay, so now that we've started to review who's in the room and we've gone over the guidelines for engagement, I just wanted to thank the councillors for joining us tonight. I can see right now that we've got Councillor Dasco, thank you for being here tonight. We also have Councillor Carlson for joining us. I did also want to acknowledge that we do have staff from the Region of Peel here, so thank you for joining us again. And can we move to the next slide? So tonight's presenters are going to be Catherine Parsons and Bashar Al-Husseini. Bashar Al-Husseini is a long-time Mississauga resident, and he's been with the City Planning Programs team since November 2019. And since joining, he's been involved with the city's major station area work in collaboration with the Region of Peel, as well as the Dundas Corridor Policy Implementation Project. So he will be sharing the MTSA, he will be speaking to the MTSA slides tonight. And now we've got Catherine as well, and she will be leading us through the inclusionary zoning portion of the evening. Catherine completed her master's in environmental management and planning at Simon Fraser University in British Columbia. And she started her planning career in the city of Hamilton, which is also the city that she grew up in. She's worked at the City of Mississauga since 2019, and she's the project lead for inclusionary zoning. So now I'd like to start us off with our presentation tonight. Bashar, can you provide us an overview of the MTSAs and how they work with inclusionary zoning?
Sure. Thank you, Erin, and thanks everyone for attending tonight. Hope you can hear me well. So as Erin mentioned, I will provide a quick summary of what major transit station areas are, MTSAs for short, where they are located, and a high-level explanation on how the MTSA project is linked to the inclusionary zoning work that will be discussed in more detail later on in this presentation. Next slide, please. So recent policy drivers from the province, such as the Place to Grow 2020 document, provide direction on where growth is to occur within the city, such as the downtown area and other areas that can support future growth. Among areas where future development will be focused would be major transit station areas, or MTSAs, which essentially are lands generally within 500 to 800 meter radius, or about a 10-minute walk from a higher order transit station or stop, mostly located along existing or planned transit corridors. In the case of Mississauga, that would include GO Rail line, light rail transit, as well as bus rapid transit lines. The province requires that upper tier municipalities, such as the Region of Peel, develop policies that establish MTSAs in their official plan, and that local municipalities, such as the city, conform to those policies. The province also provides high-level density targets for MTSAs, depending on the type of higher order transit station they encompass. For example, whether they are on a subway line, or a light rail, or a bus rapid transit line. The Region of Peel has been engaging the public over the past 2 years to identify MTSAs, delineate their boundaries, and prepare relevant policies. Once Regional Council adopts these policies and submits them to the province for approval, the City of Mississauga will be required to conform by providing more detailed MTSA policies of its own. So MTSAs are a planning tool that would help in controlling future growth and development pressures, manage appropriate densities around transit stations, and it also provides an opportunity for inclusionary zoning to support affordable housing, which is what we'll be talking about here today in more detail. They're really intended to strengthen existing community character, support a mix of uses, allow for a range of housing types, create transit supportive neighborhoods, direct higher densities where appropriate, and strengthen multimodal access and connectivity. Next slide, please. So as part of their work, the Region of Peel undertook the exercise of identifying MTSAs and defining the boundary for each through a stepped approach. This was done in coordination with the city for Mississauga. As part of the boundary delineation process, the region looked at community considerations, such as looking at existing community character, appropriate densities, built form, as well as the needs of each communities as they grow. They also looked at market and growth potential, how market ready are lands within each MTSA, land use and built form, including the existing planning and development policies that are in effect, and the mobility of each MTSA, or the existing and potential level of pedestrian, cycle, and vehicular connectedness in each area. So based on this, no two MTSAs are exactly the same, and as a result, no two will be treated equally. Once each MTSA was assessed, the region set out draft policies that identify a minimum density target of people and jobs combined per hectare. The region's MTSA policies would also spell out the requirements and details that local municipalities must include in their official plans. So currently the region has identified 54 MTSAs within Mississauga. These areas are critical to how and where our city grows in the future. The map that you see on your screen is from the Region of Peel's draft MTSA policies as of October 2021 and shows the proposed MTSAs. There will be an updated version of this prepared by the region and available to the public fairly soon. The delineated MTSAs encompass higher order transit corridors, including priority corridors identified by the province, as well as additional regional and city priority transit corridors, which are supported by recent local studies. So really that includes areas within the Dundas Connects Master Plan, the Lakeshore East Corridor Study, and the Ninth Line Secondary Plans. The proposed MTSAs within Mississauga really encompass the light rail transit along Huron, Ontario, the GO train stations along the Lakeshore West GO, so Port Credit and Clarkson, as well as Moulton GO on the Kitchener GO line. And there are a couple as well along the Milton GO line, which would include Cooksville and Dixie GO. It would also include bus rapid transit stations, so those along the 403 Mississauga Transitway, and the future Dundas BRT, 407 Transitway BRT, and the Lakeshore Road BRT. In addition to the defined 54 MTSAs that you see on your screen, you'll see or you'll notice 5 additional planned MTSAs identified by conceptual circles, and they're really intended for future delineation by the region. You'll also notice that there are 2 colors on the map. Those in green are expected to meet the density targets set by the province for MTSAs, while those in yellow will require alternative density targets given their unique existing local character and development limitations. Next slide, please. So our current city official plan already includes general policies for MTSAs, but new policies are needed to align with the provincial and regional MTSA policies. Once the regional MTSA policies are finalized, subject to provincial approval, we can move forward with our own official plan amendment to implement our own MTSA work. We will ensure that we have policies that conform with all of the region's requirements on MTSAs. In parallel, the city is undertaking a number of other studies that support the MTSA work that we're doing. So various city-initiated studies focus on specific MTSAs such as Clarkson, Transit Station Area Study, or groups of MTSAs along transit corridors such as the Dundas Connects Master Plan. The city's MTSA policies will be informed by the outcomes of these related projects. Each project is currently undergoing its own review and engagement process. However, when it comes to implementation, they'll be closely coordinated with the MTSA work. Where there are no studies that have been recently completed or currently being undertaken, the MTSAs or the MTSA policies will rely on existing official plan policies until future studies are initiated by the city. The city's MTSA policies will include minimum densities to comply with the region's density targets, minimum and maximum heights that help achieve those targets, land uses, and other policies which address, among other things, inclusionary zoning. Next slide, please. As required by the province, the city's MTSA policies will provide the geographical area and policy framework that would allow for the establishment of inclusionary zoning. Based on the identified MTSA boundaries, inclusionary zoning will be applied for select MTSAs where it would be appropriate. The specifics of the inclusionary zoning approach and how it will encourage more affordable housing options within MTSAs will be discussed later on in this presentation by my colleague, Catherine. Next slide, please. So we anticipate the Region of Peel to potentially adopt their draft MTSA policies through Regional Council meeting this spring, which would then be submitted to the province for approval. In parallel to the province's review, the city is proactively engaging the public through meetings such as this and the online webpage to provide awareness and obtain general input. We intend to present the MTSA draft policies later this spring through another community meeting, followed by a statutory public meeting. We would then target the summer to bring forth a report to council. I'd just like to note that full implementation of the city's MTSA policies will really depend on the region policies being approved by the province. And I know it was a lot of information that I just provided. So with that, I will turn it back to Erin and happy to answer any questions anyone may have.